Hey yo YouTube, I am here to continue talking about the new campaign we've started. I've been calling it campaign 3 so far. Um, this video is going to end up being 2 sessions because I wouldn't say we didn't get a lot done in the first session, but it took up a lot of time and it was only like what I would call two scenes. Uh, a big part of that is because I don't think the DM were prepared for any of the questions or things I hit him with. But whenever the DM does his, so we left off here, what are y'all doing and stuff like that, I say immediately, uh, I say, like always, I have questions, and the DM's like, all right, what is it? First question is, do the werewolves turn into humans? And he says yes. If he would have said no, I might have not had the next question. Uh, and then the next question is any of the werewolves still alive? And he's like, no. And I'm like, are you sure about that? Because I remember I killed one of them with fire from my hellish rebuke, and it was only 5 points of damage. And he goes back and looks into some few things, but because I'm like, not even a round went by technically, because the next turn was the kill. But then he ends up, yeah, making the call that technically the girl werewolf is still alive. Actually, the most interesting looking one out of them all, because she was the one that half of her face looked human, or I guess maybe her body, I'm not sure. And the other half looked like a werewolf. And Tobias starts searching the bodies, and initially all he finds is like class rings and stuff like that. The Asian girls ended up taking the Letterman jackets from the werewolves. Um, but then again, I hit the DM with something I don't think he was expecting, where I was like, I checked to see if they have wallets. I checked to see if they have paper money and IDs. And again, like this time, the DM takes like an especially long time, where like he starts looking through stuff, starts uh, I don't know, figuring something out. I believe I only find two wallets. The money is American, which is out of place here because I said we're in some kind of like Japanese Greek setting. Um, and it's like from the 50s. I find an ID. It's a California driver's license, and the name is Michael Landon. But either before this or after all this happened, at one point Joe says that we need to slow down. We're we're following the vampire, and he's almost died like 4 times now. Um, we need to get off the streets. Maybe if because like the setting's nighttime right now, like wait till daytime, and we won't run into werewolves, stuff like that. Break into one of these buildings. Uh, in the morning, we need to restock. We need to find a convenience store or a grocery store. And Dio wants to make a laboratory, which kind of goes nowhere, by the way. Uh, and so the best thing that I could think of for that would be a hospital. And if we get lucky, we'll find a blood bank, and my precious Luis over here will have to drink the three girls' blood for a while. And like uh, Jen starts laughing, or Jade, whatever her name is. So we end up coming up with the plan to move a couple blocks away because we're probably smells and stuff like this attracting other werewolves and stuff if there are any. Uh, so we go like I say, I drag the werewolf girl with the rope uh, on the ground, like 2 blocks, and we end up finding some apartment buildings, and we don't even break into them. Like when we go to the door, they're unlocked. And then I asked, when we get to this place, I asked to check the mail, see if we could find a date, see if we could find an address, the name of the city, stuff like that. And again, I'm not sure how compared the DM was to answer those questions because I remember he took a while. And the city is called Korozawa or something like that, Orizawa. Uh, the year is the railroad. I'm saying all this completely wrong, but it's something six. Japanese calendar. I kind of asked some questions because like I said, Jill's supposed to be from '93. If I never mentioned that, so I kind of say was that a year after that, and he would be like, well, your calendar would have been slightly different, but I guess yeah. And the house does have electricity and stuff like that. It appears that like people just like left, like for whatever reason, they just abandoned it. And then we check the TV, and all we see are lines. Um, I know Tobias ends up going into another room and stays there by himself. Uh, I believe he does check a little bit in the rooms that we were in, or in the apartment we were in. Uh, but like Joe ends up camping out in one of the rooms and has the hostage tied up in there with them. Uh, and then like the next morning, the werewolf girl ends up waking up, and we start asking her questions. But when she wakes up, she because whenever she was in her werewolf form, she had like blonde hair, but in her when she turns into a full human, like she has brown hair. Um, but she wakes up and she's like, "Where am I? What's going on?" And she's like, "Where's my pack?" And like Joe's like, "Yeah, our pack attacked me and my friends, and we had to do what we had to do." And she's like, "Oh, wait a minute, my pack's dead," stuff like that. And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm afraid so." Or Joe ends up saying something like, "The only one I took down was you, and as you can see, I spared you, but my friends here aren't so kind." I was, yeah, he goes like, "Me personally, I would prefer not to break the Human Rights Act." And she's like, "I don't know what that is," and I think he even because he says something about this earlier where because whenever he has to spare her, Jade's like, "You want to keep her alive," and he's like, "I don't know if a werewolf counts as a variant human, but I would prefer not to risk breaking the Human Rights Act. And also, I think she'll be more useful alive. Like we can find out where we are, what's going on." And like I say, he brings it up again, and she's like, "I don't know what that is," and he's like, "Let's just say I would try to prefer not to be down for all eternity." And she tells us that the pack leader was Larry, the classic Wolfman, and she was just following his lead, stuff like that, and he gets orders from the Master Wolfman. And she talks about how the Master Wolfman works for the Omain Horde and how they're from a different world and that the Omains brought them here. Initially, when she starts saying stuff like that, Joe asks, like, did y'all fall through a vortex or did y'all go through a vortex? And then pretty much she said they were brought here. And whenever Joe starts this conversation off, he does tell her, like, let's pretend that this group's lived in a bunker our whole lives and we have no idea what's going on. Joe knows that Omes are some type of, like, ogre yokais. Um, Joe ends up asking the Japanese girls in Japanese, because, like, all of them, like, the names that they're saying and stuff like that, the way they look are like direct copies of I Was a Teenage Werewolf, the movie that gets talked about in It. Um, so like I asked them because like I guess they've seen the movie before, the Japanese girls, and Joe's only seen It. But he asked if there's any name of the school, name of the town, anything like that they can remember from the movie. I believe they end up saying like the name of the school, and we end up asking her like, are you aware of this or do you come from this? And she's like, the movie, and and pretty much she ends up explaining that she's not from a world where she lived out I was the life of a teenage or I was a teenage werewolf, but she was an actress playing the role. Um, Joe asked like, is it one of those like the Hercules where you're acting like a werewolf when you really are one, pretending not a werewolf, pretending to be one. And she's like, no. And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Uh, but pretty much she ends up telling us that when she was playing the remake of I Was a Teenage Werewolf, where the main character is a girl this time. I think it's called like The Blood of Dracula for some reason. But it's like obviously a remake of this werewolf movie. Uh, at some point, she got cut or stabbed by some kind of dagger that cursed her and turned her into a werewolf. And it's not really in my notes, but I know there gets a rundown. Like I said, more of the actors and uh, names and stuff like it get brought up, and we pretty much come to the conclusion that all of them are actors, kind of just like if I remember right, Joe makes a comparison how it's similar to how the all the clones were made from writers. And something gets said about how like there used to be a veil that held the One back. Something about like a giant angel, like that's in my notes, but I don't remember that at all. I don't remember the DM saying anything about an angel at all. But recently, I guess the veil has started to collapse, and the One's been able to get through, and they've been invading this city or part of the world. And pretty much it gets suggested that we go a certain direction and follow the refugees because I guess there's another veil or something that if we go that way we'll be able to get the safety or something. And apparently the werewolf lady's name is Dawn Perkins. It gets brought up in like again as it's talking in Japanese. Dio's also in the room, but he's not saying nothing. I figure he just goes into like dormant mode. I think the player was playing video games to be honest with you. Um, but uh, but it gets brought up. Should we kill her and stuff like that? And Joe once again, or this actually might be the second time when he brings up the Human Rights Act. Asuka, the one that appeared like last session, the apparently her teddy bear is called Kumakuru, and and Joe kind of like hears it talking, and and pretty much she says like, "Hey, I could kill her," and Joe's like, "Did your teddy bear tell you that?" And she's like, "You could hear that?" I think she even like whispers it. So like, "You could hear that?" And he says like his training gives him high spiritual pressure or high spiritual awareness. And she's like, "That's interesting because the other two can't even hear that." Uh, but yeah, we end up making a decision to head towards the refugees, but not directly on their path because we know they're getting hunted. But yeah, again, the werewolf lady's name is Dawn Perkins, Miss May of 1957. That part I left out. Um, and that's where we end up ending that session. Like, I probably could have made a video out of that. Like, the recording is like 16 minutes, to be honest with you. But, and we start the next session off where, the Japanese girls tell Joe that Osita wants to come out for a while, so they were hoping to stay here for a couple hours before we leave to do what we're supposed to do for the day. Um, it's funny because Dio's player, like last session, like every time they ask him, what are you doing or what's his plan? He's like, did we go to the store yet? Are we at the store yet? Like every time the DM's like, no. So when this guy's brought up, he says Zio's like, man, we should just go. He's like, we've been waiting on this for a minute. When reality, it's just been the night and then it's the next morning. And like the DM's like, technically you don't understand this because they're talking in Japanese. And I know there's a few things after that it goes on where, cause like when Joe finds out, he goes back to sleep. But like the girls go down and they make some kind of breakfast, and whenever Tobias shows up, like they give him a thing of like some kind of like like raw egg or something like that, and something about it isn't supposed to. It won't stop his craving for blood, but it'll or his hunger for blood, but it'll stop his cravings. And she says that also like fresh milk would work, like straight from the tip. The fresher, the better. And Tobias gets introduced to Dawn, the werewolf girl. And for the most part, I don't want to say anything significant comes out of that scene. Uh, it does get pointed out that the Asian girl switched, that suddenly this one's around and this one isn't to Tobias, because Tobias doesn't know what's going on with that. He was knocked out whenever she did the touching thing and the other one came out. And there's like two or three times, like I could tell the DM's hinting, like, I want you to ask about this. I want you to like he's like beating around the bush, and Tobias's player is just not picking it up or just not caring, because yeah, he has yet to ask anything, because like the DM brought it up to me when we were just bullshitting, like far as he can tell, like this person disappears, isn't with us for a while, and then later on they're just here, like they didn't follow us, like they weren't just like hiding. And I forgot to mention, like I said, because Tobias was in the other room the whole night. He didn't hear any of this conversation. A big part of that is because like the player's internet went down, and since he was already in the next room, we just didn't get him. Uh, and so it gets re-explained to him what's going on, that we're going to West. I also forgot to mention that this world somehow is collapsing, so it's best not to stay here. And then the DM cuts to a scene where Jade comes into Joe's room, where wakes him up. I believe it before that they left him a bowl of food, of breakfast. Uh, but she tells him that she was like, I did some research. I talked to my friend, and they went to the store. She talks about all this stuff they collected. Uh, she names off a bunch of different videos that she was able to get a hold of, and pretty much they're the "I Want to Be a Teenage Werewolf" or "I Was a Teenage Werewolf" movies, and some of the other ones with other actors, and and she pretty much names off each one of them, and I let her say the whole thing, and and then I'm like whenever the DM's done telling me all that, I say like, Joe's listening. Joe's like, uh-huh. And then I'm like, I pull out like halfway in it, I pull out a metal pipe with the lid on it, because I said he's from the 90s. And as a 90s kid, that's what I smoked. I say I light it with my finger. Like he's listening, and when she's done, he's like either I'm half awake, or what you said makes no sense. Like, what do you mean you talked to your friend and they went to the store? And pretty much she reveals to me that whenever they switch, whenever one of them goes and the other one comes out, the one that's missing is in their own world, and I guess they could bring stuff back with them. And then Joe's like, so you're telling me we had electricity, we had air conditioning, we had a toilet system, and we could have endlessly stocked it. And she's like, yeah, pretty much. She's like, we're never gonna have it better than we did then. She's like, yeah, you're probably right, but at some point we wanted to go home, or because like one of them doesn't switch with them, so like that person was stuck there, or stuck in the mansion thing forever with them. So they were like, eventually she wanted to go home, so we did want to find a way. But Joe ends up coming up with the idea that let's check the books of the house in this place. See what we find there, and we go and search the books. They're pretty much the same thing. It's a mixture of Japanese and Greek stories. I believe some of them are DVDs too. Uh, I got I got pics. I'm gonna try to put it in front of the TV, or or in front of the camera. Um, if it doesn't work, I'm probably gonna edit out. I probably won't even put in me saying this. So let's see. Japanese knockoff of Gladiator called Battle of the Ronin. Japanese knockoff of Clash of the Titans, Battle of Kami, something like that. Knockoff of Troy, Battle of the Eighth Flood Gate, something like that. 300, the 47 Blades, Ben Hur's Ben Key's Vow. And we find a book that's something like The Shining that's called Whispers of the Uri. The writer seems to be a lot like Paul Sheldon. His name is Sinkachai Takamura. Weird enough, that's the name of my character's teacher. I point that out. I don't think it got changed though. I think the was like, oh, I guess they have the same name. And I tell the girls to see if they could find a parody of him in their world. And after that, we decided to finally go to the grocery store. By the way, Don knows where one is and is showing us the way. When we get there, it's pretty much just a Japanese grocery store. Doesn't appear to be nothing special. I like say that I'm looking for like canned stuff, restocking pretty much what we used. But after looking through the place for a while, the DM tells us to, or tells Joe to do a spot check. I roll a dirty 20. Um, One ends up popping up on the map. Uh, I say that I yokai blast it, so I don't get a surprise attack. Um, I know, like, Tiberius starts to move on the map, and the GM's like, no, 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 move back. um, and then after that, the DM says, roll initiative. Unfortunately, this was like a third of the way into the night, so I don't have that map anymore. But I would say it was probably the first fight that this group actually like did decent together. It was the first fight that my dice weren't against me. Like right off the bat, I hit the One. Like if I'm right, decent the first one, and then I roll a good initiative that I'm higher than him. I want to say I'm near the top, and I end up shooting him again for 27, and ended up taking him down with just 2 hits. And I know initially Tobias, because like Tobias is like in the aisles of the grocery store, and initially he goes into move silently, goes into hide and move silently. Eventually starts moving in a direction. I know he gets one sneak attack, but eventually he starts flanking. I know that Dio spends like 3 rounds buffing himself. Like he does one thing to bring up his armor, and I want to say he does 2 things to bring up his hit points. If he doesn't do it then, he does the second one later. Because I know at one point he gets hit like 2 or 3 times, and I'm like, the robot is about to die. And he's like, shit, I haven't even got through that extra 15 yet. I want to say Tobias takes down 2 of them. Joe ends up getting 3 of them. Cause cause I know I end up running past like Tobias's group because there's like 3 of them on one of them. So I go past them and I shoot at the one that Dio's fighting. Uh, I ended up killing that one, and then the next round, Dio runs over to the one that they're like said there's 3 on him, and he does the how do you want to do this, and goes he said he does an override cross, uh, and also in the middle of the fight, a werewolf ended up jumping out, and that ended up being one of Joe's 3 kills, because yeah, he killed the first one, the werewolf, and then the one that Dio was fighting. And Don tells us that these Ones are called Korodagi, and that they're the bulk of the One horde. And she says something about it. This was probably just the reserve group. Um, I kind of accuse her of like them smelling her, like them tracking us through her because she smells like a werewolf, and she's like, yeah, they probably smell all of us considering that big fight before we got here. She probably tracked all of our sets. And he's like, yeah, that's probably a good point. Uh, so I suggest before we go to the hospital, we stop at a bathhouse and wash ourselves off. She says she knows something, so we spend some time doing that, and then we go to the hospital. Um, Same thing, just like a typical regular hospital thing. Joe finds a bunch of medical stuff. The only thing for himself he really kept was a thermal blanket. But yeah, a bunch of surgery stuff, bunch of meds. Um, Eventually, we do find a blood bank thing for Tobias, but I kind of thought that because like they had DVDs and stuff like that, I kind of thought the girls had some form of electricity, but apparently they didn't. So they do end up finding like portable cooler, but apparently it needs like batteries every like 14 hours, and like the DM ends up looking it up, and apparently even if they do refrigerate it, blood only lasts like 42 days, and there's only enough for like 48 days for him to live off of, and that's if they just took their blood that day, so he only probably guessed around 30ish. And then, like, near the end of the looting and stuff, like, Joe starts sensing something, and, like, I say something to the group. Uh, but his communication mirror starts, like, vibrating. And he opens it up, and he sees, like, a white room, and there's a girl sitting there. And she's like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "I'm Joe. Who are you?" And she says, "I'm Armoretti." And like at first the screen looks fuzzy, and then like I said, I end up seeing I'm already sitting there. Uh, but She kind of says we tell her what world we're in. She says she knew a few people there. She says something about how the world's collapsing, and we say that we're following the refugees, and she's like, "Yeah, do that. That's what you need to do." Um, Something about the bear gets brought up, and Joe's like, "Yeah, I don't know what that is," and like she starts doing it too, and she starts saying that I think she says something about it being a spirit or something, and how it's turning the human girl is no longer turning into becoming human. Um, I say there's a few people in our group like that, and I pointed towards the werewolf, and then I pointed towards the vampire, and I say I don't know about him though. Like I don't know if he was ever human. And she says no, he was attacked by a her mother was attacked. His mother was attacked by a vampire when she was pregnant, and I was like Blade. um, uh, but I want to say for the most part, that's all they really communicate with each other. Pretty much, she just reaffirms. Uh, she says that she thinks she's dreaming. She just ended up here, and she kind of says what she says in the other campaigns or the other campaign where she doesn't know if she's gonna remember this or not. Uh, how her memory of the dreaming world is fuzzy. Um, but that's end up pretty much being where we end up closing off, our closing shot. Future predictions. We're gonna meet the refugees. We're gonna meet the refugees, and from what the DM somewhat already talked about before we started this campaign, we're gonna meet the refugees. We're gonna go through another veil, and we're probably gonna end up in the Witch Kingdom that the Titans have been in. Um, if you want to know if that's what happens, watch my next video. We want to know the story of this whole world, watch all my videos, and check you later.